Hey guys, how are you doing? In this video, we are building a very basic lead management system or CRM using Golang and GoFiber. And this is a completely beginner-friendly video. So if you have no hands-on experience with Golang, this is the right video for you to get your feet wet and start working with Golang. Now, I'll be using a very basic database called Sqlite. So it won't be very difficult for you to set up or start using, okay? And I won't be using any concepts that throw beginners off with Golang. I won't be using any pointers, difficult advanced struct modeling. I won't be using marshalling and marshalling. I won't be using like channels and go routines. I won't use any of the concepts that the beginners find really difficult to understand. So this is a great project to get started. The only prerequisite is that you should have Sqlite installed. Ideally, if you're on Ubuntu, it's very simple. It's very easy to install Sqlite. It's just one command, I think, apt-get install Sqlite. You don't have to do much, right? Just if you want, you can always have this WSL activated and you can start using Ubuntu like me. Or basically, the prerequisite is that you should have Sqlite installed. So with that out of the way, let's start setting up the project. So I'm in my terminal now, and it doesn't matter how your Go path is set up. We are creating a new project using Go mod. So that'll create the entire package for us and do the package management for us. So we can create this folder or this project anywhere in our computer. Okay. So I'm going to create a new directory, and I'm going to call the project GoFiber CRM, I think, basic. And I'm going to cd into it. And I'll also go mod init. I'll just give my username, and then I'll give the name of the project, GoFiber CRM basic. Now, go mod init creates a go.mod file, which is going to basically contain the list of all the dependencies that we'll use in this project. So you open this up I'm opening it up using VS Code. You can use any other code editor. And here I'm using, if you go to your Golang, if you go to your VS Code extensions, the first few extensions that come up when you type Golang, just install those because that'll just make your experience better in the sense they'll lint the errors and the issues for you by default. And I've already done that. So even if you don't do it, it's completely okay. But if you do it, then you're just able to find those issues much faster and easier. The way we'll structure this program is going to be really simple. We just have a database folder. We'll have our lead folder, and we'll have our main.go file. Now, main.go file is the most important file in your Golang projects. And this is basically the entry into your project. And in your lead, you'll have lead.go file in the lead folder. In your database folder, you'll just have a database.go file. So with main.go, this is how you start the main.go file, right? It's called package main. And the second thing that you usually write are the import statements for the packages that you might want to use. And then the most important function here in the main.go file is usually, or it's actually always, funcmain. So this is how you write funcmain. You just create these two brackets, and then you create these two curly braces inside which you'll actually write the function definition. And since I've already told you that I'll be using GoFiber, I'm going to go ahead and install it. So I'll say github.com/GoFiber/Fiber. Now, since we're using this package, whenever you've written down any packages and you want to install them, you just have to run this command called go-mod-tidy. And it'll find all the packages that have been defined but not installed yet, and it'll install all these for you. So it'll go ahead and find the model for package and it'll install it automatically. Okay. What you want to do is you want to create some routes. So we'll create some routes. So we'll say func setup routes here. And the routes will be simple. They'll be get leads, right? In the CRM, there'll be a create lead. So we'll have app dot post new lead. There will be delete leads. So app dot delete. There will be delete lead. Okay. And now you've been calling this app, but what is this app exactly? App is basically an instance of your Fiber. So you'll call the Fiber library like this, and you'll say dot new. Okay. And you'll go to the next line. You'll say setup routes, and you're going to pass app into this folder. I meant function, not folder. So into this function, which is set routes, you pass app, which is basically an instance of your Fiber. And by the way, you've seen that this squiggly line has gone away. That means it's done installing the Fiber package for us. Okay. Now, if you're passing app here in this function, that means you have to accept app into this function, right? So this is how you accept it. So you say fiber.app. I know there's a star here and it's a pointer, and I said I'm not going to be using any pointers, but this is just one little exception. Okay, I won't be using it anywhere else, but just to give it reference and to refer to the app that's being passed into this function, we have to use the pointer. So in case you don't know what pointers are, don't worry right now. I'll be creating very basic videos on explaining pointers, but for now you just have to remember that app has been passed into this function, and we just want to use it or call it by reference. Just remember that, call it by reference, as in we don't want to directly use app. And why and how it works and what are pointers, all of that, I'll be explaining in a different video, in a very basic kind of a video. For now, just remember that you just have to put a star here. That is it, right? That's all you have to care about. Anyhow, so you have defined these three different things, but I need one more. Okay, I need one more, and it's called just getting one lead. Dot get and just get lead. So how this is working is that for this new lead, you'll have a route which will help you create a new lead. And for getting all leads, you can have get leads. For getting just one lead using an ID, you can have get lead function. And then delete lead function will be for deleting a particular lead with an ID. Okay. So now you want to have app.listen. This starts off your server at the port 3000. And you also want to connect to the database. But what I'll do is I'll just define the database first, and then I'll come here and then we'll connect to the database. Now, you want to create a function here called init database. Okay, and you want to go to database.go, and here you want to write package database. We'll import a couple of things, and we'll define a variable. We'll define a variable to be able to connect a connection, or to be able to create a connection with our database. So we'll call it dbcon as a representation or reference to DB database connection. And it's going to be of type gorm.db. Now gorm is basically Golang ORM, which helps Golang to interact with the database. Otherwise you would have had to write all those queries yourself, but here you don't have to because you get the help of gorm. And now that also means that you'll have to import GORM, because GORM is not is an external library, right? So you'll say github.com/Jinzu, which is the name of the person who's created GORM, and then you write GORM. You'll also get the exact support for the exact database that you're using. So the database that you're using is called Sqlite. Inside GORM, we have something called as dialects, and you get Sqlite. So dialects basically means language, right? So inside GORM, what language do you want to use? So we want to use the Sqlite support language, basically, to be able to connect our Golang with Sqlite. So what you want to do is you want to put a slash here and then just copy and paste it here, right? And just run go more tidy again, and you'll get these two packages, and the squiggly line will go away. So always just keep running go more tidy, right? So I just run it some time back, and I got all the packages. So your database.go file is complete. Now we'll come back to our main.go file. Here, what you want to do is the database that you just created, right? The database file that you just created, or the database package that you just created. You want to import it here. So you want to say github.com/Akhil/ the name of the project. The name of the project is Go Fiber CRM Basics. So just write that same name here. And /database. This tells Golang that you want to import the database package that you just created here in this folder, and you just want to import that. So once you import that, then you can access the code that you've written there. Okay, so this makes the Golang code modular, in the sense you don't have to keep everything in the same file. You can divide it into different packages, and you can install or import those different packages into your main.go file. And this is how I've imported the database package that I've just created into the main file. All right, now what I want to say is, in my main file, main function, I want to call a function called init database, and I want to start a connection. So we've just defined the DB connection variable, right? So you want to say database, which is your database package, which we are accessing using this database. .db connection, which is the variable that you just created, which is of type gorm.db, remember. So you say database.db connection dot close at the end. Now differ is a statement that you can check out. It's a Golang statement, which basically means that this line that we've just said, that the connection to be closed, will happen at the end when the function has completely run, everything has happened. After that, only this function, this line will run, this command will run, which will close the connection, right? So we're just making sure that after everything is done, after the whole func main has executed, only at the end, when everything is done, just at the end, just before the end of the program, the last line or the last command to run will be this one, database connection.close. Anyhow, so this init database function that you have called here and we've defined here, we can now start defining it properly. So first you'll define a variable called error, and you'll say database.db connection. Just to remind you, database is our folder package that we just created here, database.go package, and db connection is the string that we just created. So we are accessing the database package and the database connection string, just like we did out here. And we'll also have our error, and here we'll say gorm dot open Sqlite3 and comma leads.db. So what's happening here is that you use GORM to open a connection to your Sqlite 3 database. The database name specifically is leads.db. And you get that connection in this database.connection. Or if it's not connected, you'll get an error. Now, with Golang, what you do is you handle error after every single operation that's taking place. So just as this has happened or taken place, we want to handle the error right here itself. So we'll say if error not equal to nil, you want to panic and say failed to connect database. But if everything went well, then you want to say connection opened to database, and you'll say database.db con.automigrate ampersand lead.lead. I'll explain to you what this is. And at the end, you want to say print ln database migrated. Okay. Now lead, right? Lead that you see here. You want to define the lead. Now, the reason we're getting squiggly lines here is that FMT is not imported. FMT is the package that helps you to print. Now, Golang is so modular that it doesn't even have the ability to print on its own. So it's there in a package called FMT that you have to import into your program, and then you have to use println. And this keeps Golang really light and fast. So you also want to have yeah, I think this looks good. Yeah, so you want to now we want to talk about lead. And what's lead basically? Lead is going to be this package here that we'll define, right? So firstly, we can define this package. We can say package lead, right? Just like package database we had defined. It's going to have some import statements, and most importantly, it will have a struct. Now we won't have any difficult or any lengthy structs and relationship between those structs and modeling, all of that. We don't have any of that. We just have one struct. Struct is basically a data type that you're creating on your own. So there are some data types that you get with Golang, like string and int, and that's all we're using. We're just using string and int in this video. So you get these kind of data types with Golang, right? String and int. But what if you wanted to create your own data type with a combination of strings and ints? And you can do that with Golang, and it's called struct, right? So struct is your own data type that you're defining out here. And you're saying that lead is of data type struct, and the struct is going to be com.model. It's going to have name, company, email. Sorry. Company, email, and phone. So for a lead management system, we'll just have name, company, email, phone. That's it. Phone will be int. Now what I'll do is I'll just create proper spacing between them so that it all just becomes a little more readable. And that's about it actually. So this is how what your lead is going to look like, right? So when you go back to your main.go file, you want to now import that lead, right? So right now, obviously the lead file is not complete, but eventually at some point of time it'll be completely complete. But you would want to import the complete lead package into your main.go file because you want to run some operations on it. And so how do you import it? You just do the same thing. This is your main path of the project, right? Your project is github.com/gofiber basic CRM because that's how you had defined it when you was doing go mod in it, right? That's how you initialize the project. And you can always put a slash here, and you can say lead, and it'll know, Golang will know that you're talking about this lead package out here. Now all these functions, right? So get leads, get lead, new lead, delete lead functions. We can either define them inside our main.go file, or we can define that in the lead file and keep our main.go file lean and simple and small. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to keep all those functions in our lead.go file, and we're not going to keep them here. So that means that those functions will be in lead package, and that's how you refer anything in another package. In a lead package, we'll have these functions: get leads, get lead, new lead, and delete lead. And the way to access them will be like this, with the dot notation, lead dot. Okay. Now you want to define the actual route, right? So the route will be slash, we'll keep a version v1 slash lead, right? So if somebody using Postman or using curl hits this route API slash v1 slash lead, then he's going to be able to get all the leads if he uses the get method. If he uses the post method on the same route, he'll be able to post a new lead. And for the get one by ID and delete by ID, it'll be same, but at the end there'll also be that ID of of the lead, particular lead. Cool. This is what you get, right? So this is how you set up the routes. Now the program looks complete, right? And we'll head over to our lead.go file now. So it's saying that I don't recognize what gom.model is. It's giving you a squiggly line. That means you have to import the GORM. I think my video had stopped for a while. I've just switched it on back again. Anyhow, so with import, you want to import the GORM, right? So you'll say github.com/gin/zoo/GORM. Now you notice that it doesn't give you a squiggly line out here. And that's because Golang already recognizes it, because it's already there in your go.mod, right? Gin.com is there. So you don't have to run go mod tidy again. You can just keep this or import this into any file once you have done go mod tidy, once you have imported it in your project, right? So now you'll again get your Go fiber. So I'm just going to go to my main and just copy Go fiber, because I'll be defining the functions to work with those routes. So that's why I need Go fiber here again. And similarly, what I need in the database, the Sqlite, I'll just copy and paste that also here. All right. And I also need access to the database. So what I'll do is I'll just copy this line and I'll put it here. So soon, in a while, I'll need access to the database, right? The database connection and all, because I have to, for those get all leads and post lead, I'll have to work with the database. So I need access to the database connection. That's why I've imported the database as well. And now I want to define all these functions that I have in my main.go file, which is basically get leads, get lead, new lead, and delete lead. So let's do that quickly. So first function will be get leads. Second function will be get lead. Just lead. Third function will be new lead. And fourth function will be delete lead. Now they'll accept some things, and then they'll have their own function definition. So just do that for all of these. Now, what are they going to accept, right? They're going to accept C, which is basically your fiber.context, fiber.cdx. In case you have no idea how context works, don't worry. I'll have another video and the basics on explaining context. But this is a very basic concept of Golang, and in case you already know, that's really good. But if you don't know it, just remember that to all these functions that are being driven from these APIs, right? From the APIs, you header out and you call a particular function. There you have to pass your context to your fiber, okay? So I'll just give you a very basic idea. What this is doing is that this function now can start to work with the data that's coming from the user. So for example, in my get lead function, in my delete function, I'll need to use ID, right? And I can use that, I can find that ID in my c.params. Basically, C will have all the data that's coming from the user. So I'll show it to you with an example, you understand it. So for example, in my func get lead, now I want a particular ID, right? I want a lead of a particular ID. So that means I need to define a variable called ID, and I can now get access to the params that the user is sending. The user is going to say that from the postman or curl that, hey, I want the lead for this particular ID. So that ID, you'll have access to that ID using c.params. So this is why C, which is of type fiber.context, is important. So what we'll do is we'll just copy this and paste it everywhere. Make sense? Now, let's just finish this function off first. So here I'll have a variable called db, which will be of type database.connection. And I'll have a variable called lead, which is of type lead. Now I have the ID that the user has sent to me that's saying that, hey, I want the lead of this ID. And I'm now going to my database to fetch the data for that particular ID. And what I'm saying is that db, which is my database or db connection, right, which is the instance of the database session that's going on right now, I will find in it the lead with the particular ID. So I'll say lead with the particular ID is what I need. And we'll say c.json lead. So we are able to also respond using C. The fiber context will also respond. We are able to send the response, right? So we are able to work on the request. We're also able to send the response using c.json, and we'll send the lead in the JSON format, okay? So this kind of saves our effort from marshalling and unmarshalling. Now with the get leads, we'll do the same thing. We'll say db is equal to database.db connection, and we'll define a variable leads, which is of type lead, but it's a slice. Now, when we say get leads, we are basically saying that get all the leads that exist in the database. We're not saying that get a particular lead with a particular ID. We're saying get all the leads in the database. To do that, you need something called as a slice, which is almost like an array. You need a slice of all the leads, right? So lead in this case is the struct that you've defined. And when you say slice of leads, that means that there can be multiple such leads with this particular struct, right? Or in short, if you're from a JavaScript background, you would understand that it's an array of objects. It's not just an array, it's an array of objects. That's what a slice is, okay? So you have variable leads and you have the slice of type slice, that's lead. And you'll do the same thing. You'll say db.find, and you can say db.find because db is the instance of the session for the database connection, right? So you'll say db.find and you'll get all the leads and you'll send the response in c.json. You'll say leads, send all the leads. Similarly, you want to also have the code for new lead. And again, you'll start with db is equal to database.db connection. And you want to define a variable called lead, which is new lead. And if there is equal to c.body parser lead. Headers not equal to nil, c.status 503.send error return. Okay, so what's happening here is you get you use body parser that you get in your Fiber, right? In your Fiber package, you get access to body parser. It parses the body of the lead data that the user is sending to you. So the user is using Postman, mostly, Postman or curl, and it's sending you the data for a new lead. This data needs to checked first. So we'll parse it, we'll do the body parser. And if there's some problem with parsing it, right, it's going to send an error. So this error is 503 that we're sending here. But if everything goes well, we'll just create that lead. So we'll say create ampersand lead. C.json. And once you have created that lead in the database, you want to send that lead just to show the user that, hey, this is the lead that was just created in the database right now. And this is how you create a new instance of the lead. Okay. So the new lead function is quite simple. It's just using body parser to go through the data of the lead that the user has just sent, and then checking if there's an error or creating a new lead, and then sending the response with that same lead. I hope that makes sense. Now, delete lead. To delete a lead, you need a particular ID, right? Because you want to delete a particular lead. And so you'll say ID is equal to c.params ID. And you'll say database is equal to database.db connection. We will define a new lead of type lead. When you write something like this, right? When you say var lead, right? You've done it here also. What this is, I probably didn't realize that maybe it might confuse some people, right? So lead is the struct that you've defined, right? It's the data type that you have defined, which is almost like var lead could be an int, could be a string, or could be a lead. Lead is your own data type here. So lead is the name of the variable, whereas lead is the data type, which in this case is lead itself, which is a struct. Okay. Now you want to say db.first lead comma ID and if lead.name is equal to none, we'll say c.status 500.send no lead found with ID, and we'll return from here. And we'll say db.delete ampersand lead and c.send lead successfully deleted. So we get the ID, right, using the same method that we did for get lead. Sorry, this lead here is actually capital L, right? So I hope you can see what the issue was. The issue was that there was a small L here that I didn't lead, but it will always be capital L because that's how you've defined this lead struct. Okay, so delete lead, you got the ID using the same method that we did in get lead. You got the ID, right, from c.params. Then you have db, which is the instance of the database connection. Then you define a lead of type lead struct, and then you find the first lead that you find with this ID. Now, if the name of that lead is nothing, which means that lead is not there, that means that no lead was found with that ID. But if that lead was found, then you'll just go ahead and delete it, and you'll say lead successfully deleted. That's about it. That's it. That's your lead.go file. And then there's only one thing we are left with. Okay, and this is the thing that sometimes throws people off. Mostly people who are coming from a JSON background or from a JavaScript background, is that JavaScript understands JSON by default, right? So whenever JavaScript developer goes to another programming language like Golang or Python or Java or anything else, Rust, Ruby, whatever, they get confused with this idea of that how can a language not understand JSON, right? It's because JSON is JavaScript object notation, and obviously only JavaScript understands it natively. But all other languages like Golang, we have to massage the data, the language to be able to understand JSON. So what you need to do out here is, with name, you'll have to say JSON name, and you'll say JSON company, say JSON email, JSON phone. What I have done is I have used these backticks, and inside that I've used set JSON, and I've used in double quotes name, company, email, phone number, like that. And what's happening here is that we're telling Golang that in JSON, this is what it's going to look like. So for your reference, hey Golang, for your reference, we are saying that it's name with capital N, company with capital C, email with capital E. But the JSON that you'll receive will be with small n, small c, small e, small b, right? This is how the JSON is going to look like. And we're expecting Golang to understand the JSON, right? So this is what I basically wanted to show you. And when you say, that c.json and in bracket leads, you're basically saying to Golang that, hey, whatever you received from the database, now you have to convert it back into JSON and send it to the postman or the terminal, whatever. Okay. So what I'm trying to say here is that Golang does not understand JSON, and it understands own structs, and it can only function or perform operations on that struct that it understands, and then it again has to convert something into JSON, and then only it can send it to the response, which we will understand, or our front end will understand. So this was basically your lead.go file, and database.go file is complete as well, and your main.go file is also complete. And I'm just checking just to see in case there are any issues. In my main file, I need GORM as well. So what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and I'll get the GORM, Fiber, and Sqlite. All these three packages I'll get into my Fiber I already have, so I'll remove that from here. I just needed these two packages here in my main.go file as well. Okay, so I think we are ready to be able to build this file now. So you want to, before you run this file, you want to build it. So what you'll do is you'll head back to your terminal and you'll say go build main.go. As soon as you build it, you see this file called just main. It's just called main. And what that means is that it's an executable file. It's a .exe file. It's executable, and like .exe, if it was Windows, it would be a .exe file. But whatever operating system you're using, it'll create an executable file for that operating system, so that you'll be able to run that program. And now all you have to do is go run main.go, and it'll run the program for you. As soon as you do that, you need to see these two things: connection open database. You have to see that. Database migrated. In case you don't see any of these, that means your program is not working properly, and you need to check the code. I'll push the code to GitHub as well, and you also need to, if you're still not understanding any issues, you can put that in the comments in the comments of the video section. So this means that our project is working. Like we see this nice fiber, text here, and then you have your port 3000 on which it is working. So everything seems to be fine. You have 4 APIs, 4 handlers. Okay, so now all we have to do is go to our Postman. And this is the collection that I've created for my Go Fiber basic project. There's an add lead here, as you can see, right? So I'll create this I'll create this lead. So this had an ID. It has created ad, updated ad, deleted ad, and then you have your name, company, email, phone. Now these 3 timestamps, right? Created, updated, deleted. These can be added automatically when you add some data, and these are optional right now. You don't have to add them, but you may have seen that in many programs it's added automatically, and I've shown how to do that using the time package in my other projects. Since this is beginner-friendly project, I have not used the time package. I've not shown you how to use those timestamps. Okay, and I'm sending it manually from the front end or from Postman. So here, I'll just change the ID. I'll create another record. I'll call this Alex Clinton. Let's call him Alex Clinton. We'll call the company name Microsoft, and email would be alex@microsoft.com. And we'll change his phone number a little bit. We'll send. And you can see that it's created another lead for us. If I want to get all leads, you can see that I'm on the same APIs that I have defined here, right? So if I go to my main.go file, API/v1/lead. So you come here, localhost 3000 and API/v1/lead. That's the API you're on. You send, and you can see we have created these 2 leads. So it's working perfectly. You created 2 leads, you can see those 2 leads. Now you want to get a particular lead, right? So you'll come here, and you will now look at the API, which is the get API for the particular ID. In the end, you want to add an ID, right? So in the end, I've added 2. When I do that, I get my Ramsey Peters. And if I add 1, I get my other guy. And if you want to delete a particular lead, it's the same, right? Same API, as in same route, but the method is delete. So you want to change your method here from here to delete, and you want to delete the lead too. So it says lead successfully deleted, and now when you check get all leads, it'll show you only 1 lead. Make sense? That means your entire project is working. This is your simple lead management system. In case you're a more advanced or an intermediate developer, you need to check out my other projects. For intermediate developers, there is my e-commerce project going on, restaurant management. There are those multiple scrapers that I've built. Then there is the Slack bot, Discord bot, and Bing scraper to check those out. And if you're an advanced developer, to check out the microservices and serverless series on my channel. So I have a lot of content for advanced and intermediate developers, but now I've also started creating projects for beginners so that everybody can start understanding and start learning Golang. So thanks a lot for watching, and do subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Share this video with your friends who are learning Golang, and see you in the next video.